Hello, and welcome. My name is Patrick Tobey, and I'll be guiding you through this very powerful and old meditation technique. The meditation we are doing today is called Tonglen, which is a traditional Tibetan Buddhist meditation for developing great compassion. Tonglen means the practice of giving and receiving. Cultivating compassion, the practice of Tonglen, or giving and receiving, is done to develop our compassion and our ability to be present for our own suffering and the suffering of others. It is also a practice of great kindness that opens up our whole being to the overwhelming presence of suffering and our strength and willingness to transform suffering into compassion through the energy of mercy and the cultivation of openness. Tonglen is one of the richest and bravest practices that we can do. This one practice has helped many people immeasurably in attending to their own fears around pain, suffering, dying, and loss, and has given them a real basis and a tool for the joining of compassion and equanimity. This is one of the great meditation jewels that offers a way for us to cultivate our natural compassion. Tonglen begins as a practice, a simple practice that can be used any place and any time, and eventually becomes a natural attitude we take towards life. From the beginning of practice, it provides us with several very valuable tools. When we contemplate the bad feeling at the beginning, we are looking at how we are really feeling in our bodies. Amazingly, many of us do not really know what our bad feelings are or what they feel like. So much energy is devoted to protecting ourselves from any kind of suffering that we develop an armor around our hearts. This armor feels like it protects our hearts, but it also puts a barrier between ourselves and the world and disconnects us from our own compassionate being. We protect ourselves through automatic and largely unconscious habits of distracting ourselves, distorting others, and rejecting reality. As a result, we may have little experience of being with ourselves as we are. When so much of our consciousness is devoted to fending off our actual experiences and difficult feelings, it is impossible to relax into our own true nature. Protecting us from suffering is the job of the ego, and I'm certainly not advocating that we get rid of our ego. It does a wonderful job of ensuring our survival on all kinds of levels and helps us navigate the outside world. However, if our goal is awareness, then we must become conscious of these deeply ingrained and automatic habits that keep us separate. Bringing them to awareness, exploring our difficult feelings, and considering what it would be like to face life without this unconscious undercurrent of suffering is the path of being balanced, healthy, and conscious beings. While life often provides us with experiences that force us to accomplish this, there may still remain large areas of defensiveness, reactivity, and ignorance that keeps us from being free. The first benefit of this practice is to clearly see our contractedness, to see ourselves as we are. One of the primary challenges built into the Tonglen practice is learning how to separate this contracted negative feeling from the very story itself. This entails a massive shift of awareness. Since human beings, we are by nature storytelling creatures. Our identity can be seen as a sum of all the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. In a sense, without our stories, there is no self. Letting go of the fixation on the story is no small thing, though. It represents a radical departure from our habitual way of being. The practice of detaching from the words, concepts, and pictures around our suffering teaches us a kind of surrender or renunciation, which greatly enhances our growth and development. We begin the practice with a heart that is truly committed to helping others and to working openly with our own situation. When we look deeply into how this can actually happen, we see that to help others, we must relate with kindness towards our own suffering, our rage, helplessness, and frustration, or doubt, bitterness, and fear. The practice of sending and receiving helps us to get in touch with the obstacles that prevent us from understanding and caring. Through our own experience with suffering and the development of an atmosphere of openness towards it, we can begin to accept and be with others and ourselves in a more open, kind, and understanding way. Our own difficult personal experiences then become a bridge that leads us to compassion and wisdom. In order to move beyond fear, we must first learn to relate with our own suffering, our rage, helplessness, frustration, doubt, bitterness, and fear, instead of just pushing it away. Gentle, loving kindness towards ourselves is what it takes to be present for our own suffering. We need to learn to stay with our own suffering without trying to change it or fix it. Only when we are able to be present for our own suffering are we able to be present for the suffering of others. The practice of mindfulness meditation, in which we watch the ebb and flow of a mental activity, is a good way to cultivate this ability. With gentle precision and honesty, we stay with our experience through foul weather and clear skies. Seeing the mental weather go through its changes gives us some sense of the nature and cause of our suffering, and also the possibility that, at the very ground of our being, we are all free from suffering. There is a deep peace within us that is never disturbed by the struggles on the surface. The practice of giving and receiving develops our ability to be present for suffering and offers us a way to cultivate natural mercy and compassion. It trains us to use the energy of loving kindness to open our hearts to the suffering and transform it into well-being. It asks us to invite suffering into our being and let it break open the armor of our heart. The tender spaciousness that arises awakens selfless warmth and compassion. We cannot help but to send our love and kindness to the one who is suffering, be it others or ourselves. The basis of the practice is realization that suffering exists, and that beings can be free of suffering. These are the two great points of faith that guide us in this practice. We discover them to be true through our own experience. When we sit with a dying person, we must see both of these dimensions. We must look from a place in ourselves that does include the suffering, but that is also bigger than the suffering. We must look from a heart that is so big that it is open to everything, including freedom from suffering. Can I see her suffering and her great heart as well? Can I see his true nature, who he really is, deeper than the story he tells? To begin the practice, you can sit in meditation posture, relax in a chair or lay down. Gently close your eyes and let your body and mind settle. Take a deep breath. You want to feel relaxed and open. Once you have settled into your position, begin by setting your intention with the following wishes. May all beings have happiness in the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering in the cause of suffering. May they always experience happiness, which is totally free of suffering. And may they remain in the great equanimity, which is without attachment or aversion. Now, begin by breathing in whatever you are feeling: fear, agitation, anger, resistance. Breathing it in and accepting it. On the exhalation, breathe out well-being and kindness. Clear your mind by bringing awareness to what is agitating you. Breathing it in, accepting it with kindness and compassion. And then as you exhale, give yourself some spaciousness. Do this breath practice until you are calm and alert and feel centered. And when you feel settled, begin the second stage of the practice, which is establishing a rhythm of breathing. On your in-breath, imagine that you are inhaling heavy, hot, steamy air. And on your out-breath, visualizing exhaling cool, light, or air. Continue with this pattern, breathing in heaviness and breathing out lightness. Breathing in that hot, heavy air. Breathing out light and kindness. Until all of this breathing in the negative and breathing out the light is familiar to you, and you sink into a rhythm. The heaviness is suffering, and the lightness is well-being. Now imagine that you are breathing through all the pores of your body. On the in-breath, heavy, hot air enters every pore. And on the out-breath, light, cool light flows from every pore. Now visualize a metal sheath around your heart. This metal sheath is everything about you that is difficult for you to accept. Maybe it's your self-importance or your selfishness. Perhaps it's self-loathing or self-pity or fear. It is the band of fear that hardens your heart. This practice invites you to dissolve this metal sheath and open your heart to its natural, non-judgmental state of warmth, kindness, spaciousness, and love. You can do this by visualizing the metal sheath breaking apart when the in-breath of suffering touches it. When the heart opens, the heavy, hot air vanishes into its vast space, and what arises is natural mercy and love. It is this quality of the unarmored heart that allows you to be with suffering, and at the same time, see beneath the suffering. The reason you are doing this practice is that you are suffering, and you know that others are suffering as well. And you wish, with all your heart, that all beings could be free from suffering. This wish needs to be specific and personal and sincere. It helps to touch in with a being or an event that evokes this wish. Bring to your mind some being, dead or alive, with whom you feel a deep connection. Perhaps a parent, a child, a pet, your grandmother, your dearest friend, your beloved teacher, someone who is suffering or has suffered, someone that sparks great compassion when you think about their suffering. You would do anything to lessen the suffering of this beloved being. Be with this one and feel what they are feeling. Let your whole being turn towards their suffering with your wish that it might be relieved. See how vulnerable he or she is. Imagine a mother who will do anything to help her child, and like her, you will do anything to help your friend. Visualize the suffering of your beloved as polluted, hot smoke, and breathe it in through your whole body. In the instant that in-breath of suffering touches the metal sheath of self-protection around your heart, the sheath breaks apart, and your heart opens to the suffering. The hot smoke instantly vanishes into the great space of your heart, and from this space spontaneously arises an outbreath of mercy and healing. Send a deep, cool light and spacious healing breath to your friend. Let the outbreath flow through every pore of your body. Let this one's suffering remind you of the many others who find themselves suffering in the same way. This friend is your connection to them. Breathe in their suffering and let your heart break open. Send them healing, love, and kindness with your outbreath. continue this practice. Breathing in their hot, dense suffering, allowing it to break open your heart. That suffering disappears into the space of your heart. And on the exhale, send love and kindness and light to all those suffering like your friend suffers. Breathing in your friend's suffering and breathing out that healing light. Now let's bring this practice to your own life. Remember a time when you were in a difficult situation. If this is your first time, start with a mild or moderate event. You may still hold energy around this difficulty. You may have been hurt, angry, depressed, outraged, or afraid. Remembering the feeling as vividly as possible, breathe it in as hot, heavy, polluted smoke. Let go of any sense of blame, any object of blame. Breathe in the raw feeling directly as the hot smoke of suffering. Take it in completely through every pore of your body. Own the heat and rawness of it completely. This practice takes a lot of courage. You might find yourself resisting breathing in the suffering. That's okay. That's your ego trying to protect you. It's doing its job. If that's the case, breathe in your resistance as hot, heavy smoke. Breathe in that alienation, aversion, boredom, arrogance, confusion, grief, or clinging, whatever flavor your suffering of the moment takes. Breathe it in. Let the metal sheath dissolve to reveal your vast and spacious heart. Breathe out the sense of spaciousness, openness, kindness, and love, and surrender that arises. Shower all these qualities down on yourself in a rain of cool, healing colors and light. Healing your suffering in this way can be threatening to the ego, that small, tight self that habitually clings to the job of protecting you from anger and blame or shame as a way of fortifying its illusion of solidity and separateness. It breaks your heart open to your bigger self. Don't analyze what you are doing. Don't try to figure it out. Don't justify it. simply do the practice. Breathe in the heavy hot smoke of your suffering and breathe out sympathetic space. As you breathe in your hot, heavy, tar-like suffering, own it completely. Accept it completely. Then breathe out clarity, surrender, relief, and kindness. Connecting with those suffering as you are now, consider that at this very moment, many others are experiencing the same kind of suffering and misery as you are. The details of their distress are not important. The point is to connect with the truth that others are suffering just as you are. And they want to be happy and free, just as you want to be happy and free. Feeling your distress and their distress, breathe it in for others as well as for yourself. This won't increase your suffering. Rather, it will open your heart to the truth that others are suffering as you are. It will give you the opportunity to connect with them. Let this connectedness open your sympathy toward yourself and them. Let this basic connection you have with all beings, the desire to be free of suffering, and the desire to be happy, as you breathe out clarity and kindness, let the breath go to all those who are suffering as you are. Breathing in that hot, heavy smoke, allowing it to dissolve the metal around your heart and disappear into the spaciousness of your heart. Allowing kindness and compassion to flow back out of your heart into the world, through every pore of your body. Breathe out goodness and healing as a cool light. Dissolving the visualization and continuing with the practice. Breathing in universal suffering, your suffering, and that of all beings, as a heavy hot smoke. The hardness around your heart dissolves, and your great heart appears as the smoke of suffering vanishes into its vast space. Through every pore of your body, breathe out goodness and healing and love to all those who are suffering like you are suffering, having that kindness and compassion for all beings. Little by little, breath by breath, as we do the Tonglen practice, we chip away at the accumulated store of habitual stuff that constitutes our suffering. And at a certain point along the way, there is an awakening. And although this might not happen for a period of time, maybe even years, the practice is the true beginning of your spiritual journey. Of giving and receiving.